Hi, in this video, I'll be explaining and I'll do a practical demonstration of how to take the ride height on your BMW. To perform the ride height, I take a measure from the bottom of the mag here at the rim all the way to the top of the wheel arch. In order to do this measurement, I do need to know the size of the rim as well as the model of the car. For example, over here, I have the specification for this particular vehicle. You can locate the size of your rim by looking on the sidewall of your tire. You'll notice that there are some numbers. In this case, the sidewall says 245/4519. Notice the 19 is the size of the rim in this case. Knowing your rim size and knowing the model, you can then go get the specification for your particular BMW. In this case, I have the E65 BMW. Notice that the specification is set according to the rim size. So in this case, we are looking at a 19-inch rim. Notice that the measurement is 665 millimeters. If I was using a 17-inch rim, the measure would be 640 millimeters. It's very important to have the exact model and suspension layout in order to do the ride height measurement. For example, on the same vehicle, here are the measures for the sport suspension. Notice that for a 19-inch rim with the sport suspension, the ride height measurement is actually lower than the regular suspension. That is why it's very important to have the exact details of your vehicle before doing the ride height measurement. Also notice there are different models within the range. For example, this is an E65, but here there's also an Alpina version. Showing another example here for the E90, if we have a look, we can see that there's sport suspension, there's a rough road package, and sometimes they even mention the country as a specifier to the ride height. So in the case of this E34, notice that there's quite a few different measures that are applicable to different packages that the car may have come with. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing the E65. Now the specification also provides a tolerance. Now the tolerance is 10 millimeters for this vehicle and for most of the BMWs. What that means is that in the case of a 19-inch rim that was supposed to measure 665, I'm allowed to get a measure of 10 millimeters below this and 10 millimeters above this, which means that the range would be 655 all the way to 675. I will still demonstrate this. Then they also provide a difference in the ride height between the left and the right, which is also 10 millimeters. I will now show you an example. So in measuring the ride height, we first measure the one side and then we measure the other side and then note the values. And then once you've done your assessment, you'll then do the rear, the one side and then the one side. Right, now I'm going to explain the tolerances. Over here, I have the specification for the E65 with the regular suspension, and the size of the rim is 19 inch. So the specification is 665. The tolerance is 10 millimeters, which means I'm allowed to get a measure of 655 all the way up to 675. Now notice that the left to right range is also 10 millimeters. So I have a series of measures here and I'm going to tell you why I pass or fail the test. For example, if I measure on the left side and I get 660, is 660 within the 10 millimeter range of the specification which was set at 665? Yes. Now, if I measure on the right, 670, that is also within the range, so it passes the test. If I compare the left to the right, notice that the difference between the left and the right is 10 millimeters, so it just meets the specification. Now, if I got a measure of 660 on the left, that is within the range of the ride height of 10 millimeters. But if I measure on the right, I get 675, which is also within the range of the ride height. But now what has happened is the difference between the left and the right exceeds the 10 millimeters because 675 minus 660 is actually 15 millimeters and therefore it fails the ride height test. If I took a measure, I got 655. Yes, 655 is still within the range specified in the tolerance height. And on the right-hand side, if I got 675, yes, 675 is still within the range of the tolerance of the ride height. It would fail the test because the difference between left and right is now 2 centimeters. And with a 2 centimeter difference, you can actually feel the car leaning to the side. Even if you look at the dashboard, you'll notice that the car is not horizontal. Right, if I got a measure of 650 on the one side and 650 on the other side, it fails even though they are the same because 650 is below the 655 specification. If I got 680 on the one side and 680 on the other side, it's a complete fail. Even though the left and the right match each other, it is still a fail. The tolerance of 10 millimeters has been exceeded. In this example, the E65 front axle should have a ride height of 665 with a 19-inch rim. Now it's important to get the rear axle ride height. Over here I have the rear axle ride height. Notice that the value is different. Now just a note, all these ride height measurements that I'm talking about are in the normal position. That means that the car is unloaded and just has a full tank of petrol. Now there are some manuals that state that the ride height must be taken in the normal loaded position. Now in the loaded position, the car has to be weighted down according to the following specification. Each front seat has to have 68 kilograms, the center of the rear seat has to have 68 kilograms, the trunk 21 kilograms, and then the fuel tank is full. So in this weighted measure, we get a different result because the car will be even lower towards the ground. So for example, people actually have weighted down their car to try and achieve the weighted measurement. For example, on this much older BMW, the E34, here are the measures under normal loaded position. So using the measure for a 15-inch rim with a standard suspension, the measure is 522 millimeters, but in the loaded position. But if I compare that to the specification for the normal position, which means not loaded, notice that for the 15-inch rim, it is 588 millimeters. So please be aware that when measuring the ride height, you must have the correct specification for the correct measure. In most measures, we measure in the normal position. That means we don't put sandbags. Right, to practically measure the ride height, I need the car on a horizontal surface. For this vehicle, it is measured under normal conditions. That means there is nothing additional in the vehicle other than a full tank of petrol. Now I need to measure from the rim, the bottom of the mag, all the way up to the top of the wheel arch. Right, so I measure from the bottom of the mag to the top of the wheel arch. So in this case, it is 66.3 centimeters. Now follow the same procedure for the rear. Remember to measure the left and the right. Check that they are both within the tolerance for your particular BMW. If your ride height is below the tolerance but your suspension components are mostly in good working order, then please have a look at your springs. In the vast majority of cases, it's the spring that determines the ride height. So if the ride height is too low, please check that you have the correct springs, or maybe your springs have gotten fatigued. Thanks for watching and cheers.